Hello, I'm Joshua Schlegel, and this is going to be my spoiler discussion on Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. I don't know if I'm saying her name correctly. I'm pretty sure it's Bronte, but I don't want to say like Bronte. It's Bronte. Bronte. Bonjour! Okay, so I'll just start talking about Jane, and forgive me if you see me like look down every once in a while. I have my notes like right here, completely unorganized, but when it comes to Jane as a character, it really throws you in to her POV at 10 years old, and I was just already surprised at this, just the fact that, oh wow, like she's 10, and right away, you know, she's being abused and just treated like crap, and I was just felt really bad for her. I'm like, dude, she's 10 years old, and I just have to remember like this is back in the day, you know, the setting and the time frame that this is in, and you really get to see, you know, how lonely she is, even as a child. Like she has nobody. It's just, you know, her aunt, who isn't her like, you know, blood aunt. She was her aunt by marriage, who's kind of she sees it as like she's stuck with her now. I just felt so bad for her. I love how, you know, she puts her foot down and tells her aunt what it is, how she feels about her and everything, and you just see the emotions of a child come out and responding to all that has happened to her and how they've been treating her. One thing about children, especially when it comes to emotions, once they come out, I mean, they're honest. So she gets sent away to school, and the way she describes Lowood, I pictured it so perfectly in my mind, but she gets there, and right away you just see how the kids are treated and everything, the punishment. What really stood out to me there, and it does kind of throughout the book, more so at this school, but also you'll see like later on with another character, but how Christianity really shows you how the strong beliefs of some characters, especially Mr. was it Brocklehurst, the owner of Lowood, the school, and moments of just how he sees, you know, this isn't godlike, or this isn't, I believe it was when one of the girls, students there, showed her curly hair, and he was like, you know, tomorrow, like, cut all their hair off, like, just shave all their hair off, and, you know, this isn't something God would want, it's, you know, it's of the devil or whatever, and it's just, it just shows you the extremities of that back then, and it really made me think of the history of Christianity, you know, how it was used to start wars and all the bloodshed behind it. And I don't want to get too far into that. I feel like I've already said too much, but yeah, just that really stood out early on in the book, when they were at school, and provoked those feelings and thoughts in me. But you get to see Jane grow there, and she does wind up getting a friend. And Helen is also another oddball, which, you know, Jane kind of naturally flocked to and asked all her questions with her curious mind and learned the most from her, and it was just nice to see her get a friend. But, you know, soon after they become friends, she dies, and Jane dies laying right next to her, and she must have like the immune system of gold, like the golden standard of that. But I did feel sad when her friend died, because it just made me think like wow, like she's, you know, just back to being lonely again, you know. So then we get a time jump, and we get to see Jane at 18 years old. So she's about, you know, in between 18 and 19 years old. She winds up working as a teacher there. She's gaining experience, and she has been teaching at Lowood for a while now. She winds up advertising for a job and gets hired at Thornfield Mansion. And so she makes her journey there. I like how it shows her write to Mrs. Reed, who was her previous caretaker, to get permission, like if she didn't mind if she took post at, you know, another location instead of Lowood. And they're like, you know, we don't care what you do, you know, you do what you want, like we've already, like basically we already forgot about you. Like it just it's like, man, just this background melancholy that I have for Jane the entire time. I really felt her loneliness, but I loved her persistence and, you know, just life in general, and her going through all this and growing up this way, and her character that she develops as she's 18 years old, because that was really the most interesting thing. I wanted to see, like, oh wow, like we went from 10-year-old Jane to 18-year-old Jane, so who is she now? In my opinion, just a solid character. So she gets to Thornfield Manor, or the mansion or whatever, Thornfield Hall. She meets Mrs. Fairfax, which is a friendly, you know, older woman who introduces her to the grounds of the mansion, gives her the tour, with creepy vibes settle in. Like, as she describes the stairway or the hallway where her room is located, and then the portrait she sees and like the wood that she's describing, like, I don't know, I just get this creepy vibes. I think that was when ghosts were mentioned or something. It was just like, ooh. So I'm just thinking like creepy haunted mansion vibes. I like the whole run into Mr. Rochester. The moment she ran into Mr. Rochester with the whole horse scene, I was just like, oh, this is the guy. Like, this is gonna be the love interest for sure. I'm sure this is him, the owner of the home and everything. Because I knew the romance had to do with some hierarchy type of thing, some social status or class. I think it says that in the synopsis about the romance. So I was already kind of keeping an eye out for this, and I wondered, like, would it be the owner, Thornfield, though? I feel like it's kind of too high up, and then you learn this guy's like in his 40s, and she's like 18, 19. I'm like, it's not him, but before I knew his age, I was like, this is the guy. Well, it turns out he is the guy. And but age is just a number, right? It's just a number. So Mr. Rochester, also, Edward, he felt like a deep character. His conversations with Jane, I enjoyed those in the book. I think they were really well written. They were a lot of fun to see those two go back and forth. I like how Mr. Rochester is very inquisitive and asked a lot of questions of her, and you can see he had a good heart, that he was a good man through the dialogue and just through some of his actions as well, except for, I mean, I don't think it was like evil or bad or anything, but he would do things that test Jane, right? And I think it was just Jane obviously was a character that I think was hard for him to read, with her kind of stoic vibes, or plain face. Is this where they got the phrase "Prezi plain Jane"? Or plain Jane? Wow, I just thought of that. I also love how both Jane and Edward were not painted as like these beautiful, overly like sexy people. Just because I think we're just so used to seeing that in like movies and stuff. Most of the time it's always like there's always beautiful people, and it just made it feel more realistic for me. It made it feel really lived in. The way they described how they looked. And the moment that he asked Jane if he finds her handsome, and her, like, no hesitation, no sir, I just could not stop laughing. I think it was a mix of me being so tired that I just found it like hilarious, but also it was just funny. Like, she was just like, no, like, you're not, no. And I was like, no, what it was is when I read that line, in my mind I thought, well, she has to say yes, right? Because he's like the master and, and whatnot. But, so that's what it was, is the shock I had when I read her immediately just say like, no. When the book starts going really into the creepiness, right, as Jane's like trying to sleep and she hears noises on the ceiling, noises outside her door, and her showing the bravery of just like opening the door and checking it, I would do the same. I would definitely do the same. But she is hearing all these noises and the creepy laugh of Mrs. Poole, and I'm just like, absolutely not. And at this point I'm like, bro, what am I reading? Like, what is this book about? And it pulled me in even more with these things happening, because there's obviously some mystery and some things about this mansion that's going on. And so it was super fun to experience these moments, but also just, I was just like, absolutely not. And then of course the fire breaks out, right? Like, someone tries to burn down they light a fire in Mr. Rochester's room, and Jane winds up saving his life because she hears sounds, she hears laughing, and she rushes to the room, wakes him up, and they put the fire out and everything. But my favorite part about that whole sequence is the conversation that she has with Mrs. Poole afterwards, or the day afterwards, because I'm already like, bro, it had to be Mrs. Poole. She's the only one that laughs weird, or that we've seen or heard laugh, as we know at this moment. And so she's talking to her, and their back and forth was just brilliant. Like, I loved how we get to see her thoughts as they're talking. And Mrs. Poole kind of turns it around on her by asking her the same question, as far as, you're much younger, like, how did you not hear anything, right? And I loved it, and I love how Jane was like, oh, like, she's on to me, or the fiend or something. I don't know. I just loved that part of the book. And the moment she said, like, you'd be wise to lock your doors at night, it was just sealed the deal for me. Like, I was like, oh, it has to be her, but it was too obvious also, so my eyes were peeled, for sure, around Mrs. Poole. So I'm not sure if anyone who read this book liked Mrs. Ingram or Miss Ingram. I definitely did not. I don't believe we're supposed to. She's just that portrayal of, like, that snobby, high class character that just kind of acts like her stuff doesn't stink, and it would seem that she has Mr. Rochester in the bag as far as going to marry him. Mrs. Fairfax believes so, and she's telling Jane this, and you can see how it bothers Jane. I mean, Jane's letting us know, even questioning the feelings about it too. The conversation that they have about, children and having, going to school versus having governesses, and also how their feelings are, I believe she says her feelings are nothing but the feelings of a dog. Just compares them to the feelings of a dog, and it's just, I love Jane's response to that. I love that Jane always stands her ground in these conversations. It's part of just what you love about her, the resilience she shows, and the self-respect, and just always showing honesty and standing in her truth. She basically tells her that we should treat children like they have feelings just as much as we do. The fortune teller scene was a lot of fun, of course. It was one of the fun little plot twists, the first big plot twist, at least for me, where, I did not expect it to be Mr. Rochester. It really shows his cunning, and this is what I mean by him testing Jane, right? Because I think this is where he was trying to confirm her feelings of what, his suspicions of her watching him and her having romantic feelings for him as well. I wish we got to see what he said to Miss Ingram. I think that would have been fun. I enjoyed Adele, Adele or Adele. I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right or wrong, but she, of course, her being French, and she spoke mostly French throughout the book. I was looking up everything she was saying at first, but then I stopped because I don't think anything she says, like, was super duper important for the plot. I still wonder though if some of it was giving foreshadowing for certain events, but I'm not sure, because I stopped at some point pretty early looking up what she was saying. I just tried to guess what she was saying based on the context clues around it. But I thought that was cool. It was a nice little touch on really feeling like you're in there reading French, and just trying to read French. It made me wish I knew French. Man, so when Mr. Mason shows up, right, and he gets bit and stabbed and he's like bleeding and dying, at this point it's like, dude, like, what is going on? And I remember Jane questioning, she's telling Mr. Rochester, like, what about Mrs. Poole, like, is she, and he's like, no, like, she's nothing to worry about, she's to be trusted. So at this, I'm like, dude, what? Then who? And you get this sense, of course, that he's hiding something, right? So yeah, and I'm trying to figure it out. In my mind, I'm asking all these questions. I'm thinking of all the characters we know and what we've seen so far, and there's just no leads though that I could come back to that it's like, who bit and stabbed this guy? I have no clue. But again, just what a event that was unexpected, and very interesting to see what was to come. So we learned it was Edward's wife who is the reason why they couldn't get married. He was hiding her away in the attic this whole time. And it's really conflicting because you feel bad for Edward when you hear his side of it, and he shows, this, he introduces her to everyone, like, this is my wife, like, meet my wife, and you see that she's insane, she's gone mad. And he's like, what am I to do? Am I supposed to just, like, be deprived of love and happiness, and, and I wanted to tell you this and that, but at the end of the day, on Jane's side, we're like, nah, bro, like, you lied. You could have said what was going on a long time ago before it came to this. So yeah, that's what it is. It's like you weren't honest, but I get it. You know, he was in love, and when you're in love with someone or you want something, you tend to kind of project a version of events or a version of yourself that you want to portray. So this just is what it is. So it's like I can understand it. So Jane leaves inevitably and becomes a beggar for 2 to 3 days. Comes across her long lost cousins who find her. Of course, she doesn't know that they're her long lost cousins, but she finds out that they are. She also winds up inheriting like a large fortune and everything, and it was just funny to see like she wasn't even really shocked about the fortune. She was more shocked and cared more about the fact that she actually had family that was still alive, and that they happened to be her, like or they happened to be the ones who saved her and helped her, so close to her. What a small world, right? Even in the book. Reading that scene where St. John is telling her that you've inherited 20 pounds or 20,000 pounds, which is like probably like a lot of money, like $20 million, I would assume back then. I don't know. It's a lot of money. And she's like, rich. And all she's saying is that she wants to divide it evenly amongst her, St. John, and the two sisters. I want to say Mary and Diane, if I'm not mistaken. What a heartfelt notion. And she says this because, you know, she tells him like I've been lonely all my life. I've had no one all my life. I've always just wanted to know what it's like to belong, like to have family around me, to call my own. And it made me really sad. It made me really want to cry reading that. It really spoke to her loneliness, and she's come a really long way. But it's like in my mind, I'm like, you just met these people though. Like it's, you know, is it blood that makes us family? So it's just one of those things that made me think about it and really think deeply. You know, I've had family members in my life that, you know, when you've lost contact with them or you tried to speak to them after years, it's like you really don't know each other, and it's almost like you're not family at that point. So it was interesting. I couldn't wait to see what was to come after that. So I'll just go ahead and say that, you know, I didn't like St. John either. I didn't like St. John. This is the second moment in the book where the whole Christianity thing, I have nothing against Christianity. Like, I was raised as a Christian. I don't know if I'd call myself a Christian now, but I would say that him wanting her to go to India with him as a married couple, you know, it's one thing like you wanting her to go to India to do missionary work with you, but another to like try to force her to marry you, and using the name of God to justify like I remember him telling her, like, you say no, like, remember, if you say no to this, you're not just saying no to me, you're saying no to God, you're denying God. And so that's that was just like, man, I don't like this guy, I don't like him. And Jane, you better not go to India. I was gonna be so upset if Jane went to India, so upset. And what's crazy about it is she was saying she'll go with him, but she won't marry him. And he's like, no, like, that's not good enough, you know. And I know John's a good guy. I know St. John is a good man. He has a good heart and good intentions. But again, just those words and saying it in that way just brings back a very ugly feeling in me. That's like you using religion and God as, you know, a way to empower you getting what you want. Like, I don't like it. Just the fact that she was even willing to go with him is just like, Jane. But luckily, you know, she has that moment of kind of hearing Mr. Rochester crying out for her. I think of I compare that moment to, well, not really, but I don't know. I think of like sometimes you think of someone, you're thinking about somebody, and all of a sudden they text you or they call you. You know, just it's a very interesting phenomena. And so when I read that she hears Mr. Rochester kind of calling out for her and things like that, crying out for her, and she does wind up seeking him out, I already assumed she was going to anyway. I mean, I knew it wasn't the end of her and Mr. Rochester. Like, either he was going to find her or she was going to find him. She already was bringing it up. Like, what of him? Like, what have you heard of Mr. Rochester? Like, she was writing letters, right, to ask Mrs. Fairfax, like, what's going on with him? Like, what happened to him? What became of him? So I was like, man, she's gonna have to go to him to see. So she does. Especially before making this final decision, she goes. So she finds the mansion burned down. She finds him without a hand and also blind. Like, and discovers, the whole thing happened with the fire and how his wife died jumping off the roof. The whole place got burned down. And it's just so sad to see that happen to him. And I was shocked. I was like, there's no way. But no, like, he was blind. Anyways, she goes to see him, and what a heartwarming moment. I found myself really rooting for them at that point, right? You're just like, oh, like, and knowing Jane is just down to stay there with him and take care of him and be there for him. What a keeper, man. What a keeper. I love Jane. And you get to the chapter in the end, and the first line is like, reader, I married him. And, like, we didn't see that one coming, right? But it was beautiful. I like how it all wrapped up, and it reveals that she's kind of telling us the story of her life, 10 years later. So she speaks of how life is and how she's happy with him, and it's just, you just feel good about the whole thing. At least I did. And it's crazy that she ends it with St. John. She actually, like, the last page, she's talking about St. John and how she appreciates him and his character as well. And like I said, yeah, okay, the guy was noble and whatnot, but yeah, I don't like the guy, but whatever. Loved this book. Enjoyed every bit of it. A lot of thoughts that it provoked in me, and just asking my own questions and just thinking of my own life experiences as well. I do relate to her a lot, and a lot of ways of her character and things that she's gone through, oddly enough. And I just, honestly, I didn't know what to expect when reading this book. I didn't know if I was going to like it, if I'd get bored with it. I didn't know. But I 100% did not expect to like it as much as I do. 5 stars across the board. I would recommend anybody to read this. I love the fact that you can't really pin this down with a genre. Like, you can't really say this book is not a horror. It's not a full-on, like, love story. It's a I don't know, but it's a beautiful tale of someone's resilience, identity, growth, self-respect, passion, and just becoming who she is as an adult from a young child. And so I enjoyed it thoroughly. I did watch the limited series. It was 4 episodes. I believe it was made in 2007. It was on Amazon Prime for free. I watched it, enjoyed it. Apparently it was like a Golden Globe nominee or something. It was really good. Like, it was better than I thought it was going to be. I mean, there were some things that they did differently. They did the fortune teller scene differently. There was no charade game that it showed. But yeah, it was really good. The acting was excellent. And I love the portrayal of Jane Eyre and Mr. Rochester as well. Yeah, really good. I also watched the movie. There was a movie that was made in 2011, and the cast in that one was, I didn't even know that movie was made. And I don't know, Michael Fassbender as Mr. Rochester, and I don't memorize her name, but the actress was the same girl that played in Alice in Wonderland live action adaptation, and she did a phenomenal job. The scene where she's telling Mr. Rochester, do you think just because I'm poor, plain, and little, I'm soulless and heartless, you think wrong? I have as much soul as you, and full as much heart. And if God gifted me with some beauty and much wealth, I should have made it as hard for you to leave me as it is now for me to leave you. She killed that scene. I felt that scene to the bottom of my heart, and she was saying that to him. The whole movie was great, though. Visually stunning. For them to condense the story in 2 hours, that's where some of my quibbles come when it comes to the movie adaptation, but it was still good and enjoyable to watch. So, and I think I totally understand why books are better than movies now. 100%. So yeah, fully recommend. I think this book is still highly regarded today from the 1800s for a reason. Very inspiring read. And yeah, that wraps up my spoiler discussion about Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. How do you feel about Jane Eyre? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you find it difficult to read? Also about Wuthering Heights, right? Wuthering Heights, by her sister, right? So I kind of want to read it just for the fact that it's written by her sister. I'm sure their writing styles aren't too similar, them being their own individuals. But I don't know. I wonder if I would enjoy that book. What do you think? Would you recommend Wuthering Heights if I enjoyed this book? Do they have any similarities at all? I know they just recently released a movie adaptation of that as well. So yeah. Any recommendations you have on that, I'd gratefully accept. Any tips or anything you have for me on just making videos, I would gratefully accept if you sat through this. So as always, I appreciate you. I wish you the best, and I hope you have an excellent rest of your day.